we begin with a major breakthrough in the Middle East crisis. Israel and Hamas have agreed to a Gaza ceasefire and hostage release. The deal comes after intense negotiations in Doha and consists of 3 phases set to go into effect on Sunday.
Phase 1 of the agreement will go on for 42 days, and it will include a ceasefire and the withdrawal of Israeli forces to the east away from populated areas. Israeli forces will then be positioned along the Gaza border, and which will allow for the swap of prisoners as well as the swap of remains and the return of the displaced people to their residences.
Under the terms, Hamas will release 33 Israeli hostages during Phase 1, including children, the elderly, and the sick or wounded. They will be exchanged for a number of Palestinian prisoners in Israel. The first phase will also see an increased flow of relief and humanitarian aid and fuel into Gaza. There will also be a focus on getting hospitals, health centers, and bakeries running again. Officials say the details of the next 2 phases will be finalized during the implementation of the first round. Reaction to the ceasefire deal has been coming in swift. While there are celebrations, for many, it comes with a cautious optimism. That includes those here in the GTA who have personal ties to that region and have been anxiously hoping for this day to come. Tyreek Reed has more.
So many people have lost their homes, lost their jobs, lost family members. You know, there's no winner in war.
More than 15 months after the deadly war begun in Gaza, news that Hamas and Israel have reached a ceasefire deal is bringing relief to many. Mayan Shavid's aunt was killed on October 7th, and cousin captured and later killed. Still, she's glad upon hearing the news.
The most perfect thing is that we'll get all the 98 hostages that are still there, and we can maybe start to rebuild and heal.
Though she wishes it could have happened sooner.
It's like a bittersweet. It's happiness with a lot of sorrow and sadness, because Carmel was supposed to be home. She could have been home. Like I said, this deal should have been signed at least 7 months ago, if not 8 months ago. In May already. Last year, she was supposed to be home.
It's an emotion that's being felt on both sides. Mirvat El-Shrafi lost numerous friends and family in Gaza to the fighting over the past year, some in recent days.
The week before, I lost my close friend. So for all the people we lost during the year and a half almost now, it was too hard to be only happy without the sadness.
And while there's joy knowing those still being held will soon be free, it comes with knowing they will never be the same. Jared Grover is a rabbi at a synagogue in North York. He says they have been in touch with people whose loved ones have been taken hostage.
At the same time, they're not coming home free. They're coming home with tremendous mental baggage. We know that. They're not going to be the same people. So our focus is going to have to change from praying for their release to helping them get back on their feet.
With the hope that a permanent ceasefire will soon be put firmly in place.
I believe on my people in Gaza. I believe of them. I think they can. They are strong enough to rebuild Gaza again.
We want to see them back to their homes, children back in their kindergartens, people living normal lives in safety and in security on both sides.
Tyreek Reed, CBC News, Toronto.
Another developing story we're following. Canada's premiers met with the Prime Minister today to discuss how best to respond to Donald Trump's threat of slapping tariffs on Canadian goods once he retakes the White House, a matter of days now. Queen's Park reporter Lorena Redekop has more.
He makes you an offer you can't refuse.
Premier Doug Ford arrived wearing a message clearly aimed at President-elect Donald Trump, pleading unity in the face of his 25% tariff threat.
Nothing's more important than the country. And when we're defending the country, we don't roll over. You're in a card game, you don't show your opposition your cards. If you have some aces, you hold on to those aces.
It seemed to be the opposite of Alberta Premier Danielle Smith's stance leading up to the meeting. She joined virtually from her vacation. She'd argued oil and gas should be off the table when it comes to counter tariffs, saying it could lead to a national unity crisis. When they emerged after the meeting, the Prime Minister said they agreed on principles, though notably, Premier Smith did not sign a joint statement. The First Minister's committed to distributing funds to help offset the economic impact of U.S. tariffs on workers and businesses, and to distribute revenues from any retaliatory tariffs as quickly as possible. Smith, who's the only premier to meet with Donald Trump, posted on social media that she couldn't sign because oil and gas counter tariffs would still be on the table.
I respect that she's concerned about protecting her energy, and that's her choice. That is her choice. But I have a little different theory. I have a different theory that protect your jurisdiction, but country comes first.
There will always be robust discussions around this table. Everyone has a job that is defending the interests of their own constituents.
And as for that hat Premier Ford was wearing, it was designed by an Ottawa company. There's even a red one.
It's a cheeky rebuttal to President Trump's overtures and absurd statements.
The company first produced them a week ago, inspired by an interview by Ford on Fox News and the response he got. Then yesterday, someone from the Premier's office called, asking for a couple of the hats.
Canada is not for sale. We are the strong and free. We are an amazing country that we should be proud of, that we should take pride in and participate in that. And yeah, just a really simple, small act of patriotism to respond to a really big challenge. And that's why we're getting calls and orders from coast to coast to coast, people from across the political spectrum, the aisle. It's not about politics, it's about love of country.
But it's still unknown what exactly those tariffs by Donald Trump will look like. The premier's agreed to meet every week after his inauguration next Monday. Lorenda Redicomp, CBC News, Toronto.
A woman is fighting for her life in hospital after a hit and run in Mississauga early this morning. The incident was caught on video by a nearby home's security camera. As Clara Pasica reports, police are still searching for the vehicle and driver.
Peel police say that a woman is fighting for her life after being struck by a vehicle here at this intersection of Bristol Road West and Loon Lake at around midnight. Peel police telling me that a female pedestrian was crossing Bristol Road here legally with the light when she was struck by a vehicle. We've actually obtained some video footage of this incident that is quite disturbing, which we'll play for it now. As you can see, there's a woman who is crossing the street. A car approaches driving along Bristol, runs through the red light, and that car hits her. Seconds later, we see this woman is thrown into the air, landing several meters away. Peel police have now released a description of the vehicle.
The vehicle we know is a dark colored vehicle, and it's going to have extensive damage to its front end as a result of this collision. And we're appealing to anyone who has dash cam footage, witnessed this collision, any body shop that might have a vehicle come into its building, or potentially your neighbor who has a dark colored vehicle with front end damage. Please reach out to our Major Collision Bureau investigators or Crime Stoppers.
This pedestrian was transported to a trauma center in life-threatening condition. Certainly a disturbing scene to wake up to or hear about in the morning for many residents who live here. Have a listen.
I'm worried very much, especially like I'm a walking dog sometimes in the night times, and people, they don't drive carefully, so it's horrible.
I'm very much like flabbergasted that why this happened here. See, because in India it is very common that I have to look both ways when I'm crossing the street. But here I was like freely roaming around, and I know that they'll follow the lights. It is quite scary for me and for my child, because I'm moving with a child. So
Peel police are appealing to this driver to obtain a lawyer and turn themselves in. Clara Pasica, CBC News, Mississauga.
Toronto rapper Drake is suing his record label over Kendrick Lamar's track, Not Like Us. Both artists are signed to Universal Music Group. Last May, Lamar released the song that called Drake, quote, a certified pedophile. Thomas Dagla looks at Drake's latest move.
They not like us. They not like us. They not.
Soaring to the top of the charts last year as a viral earworm, Kendrick Lamar's Not Like Us is now the focus of a defamation suit filed by his Canadian rival, Drake. The Toronto megastar is suing Universal Music, the record giant that represents both artists, blaming the company for a campaign to create a viral hit out of a rap track that falsely accuses Drake of being a pedophile.
He may have some valid points when you get into the allegations.
Indeed, that song makes unproven accusations that Drake strongly denies. Drake claims Universal used bots to artificially inflate the song's popularity on Spotify. And he points to this official illustration for Lamar's track showing Drake's Toronto home with red markers, suggesting he's housing sex offenders. All of it, he says, leading last May to a drive-by shooting outside his mansion. Drake says his security guard very nearly got killed. Recounting publicly for the first time, Drake and others labored to keep the man alive by applying pressure to the gunshot wound with towels. Blood was everywhere. The star says he even pulled his young son out of a Toronto school over safety concerns. Drake alleges Universal purposely drove down his popularity as his contract was up for renewal.
His value was up here, and now, ironically, they could argue that his value is down here. How did that happen? I think that's what he's trying to get at.
Universal Music Group calls Drake's allegations untrue and illogical. As for Lamar, he's set to headline the Super Bowl halftime show next month, meaning an audience of millions will likely hear Not Like Us once more. Thomas Daigle, CBC News, Toronto.
Toronto FC introduced the team's new head coach to the media today. Fraser was hired last week. Now, he's a familiar face to TFC fans, having been an assistant coach with the club during its glory years. Greg Ross has more.
As Toronto FC hopes for a brighter future, the club is looking for help from a man who was a big part of the team's past success.
Coming into this building, it was like putting on an old shoe. I've really enjoyed my time here.
Fraser was an important piece of Greg Vanney's coaching staff with TFC, which is viewed by many as the heyday of the franchise. It included the club's championship season in 2017, but a lot has changed since then.
I know that it's not the same. It's many years later, the players are different. To be quite frank, it was saddening to see this club that we all hold in such high esteem not have the results over the last number of years that we would like to have seen it.
Toronto has missed the playoffs for the past 4 straight seasons. In that span, they've gone through 5 different head coaches, the latest being John Herdman, who resigned from the team in November after it was revealed he was being investigated as part of Canada Soccer's drone scandal.
And I think that's one of the reasons why this team has struggled on the pitch for the last 5 years, is because there's been consistency in terms of the coaching.
Consistency with the coaching position is just one of the things TFC fan groups are hoping Fraser can bring to the club. They say his most important task will be getting the team back into the playoffs.
Desperately, we have to. A team really needs to bring that energy back. You can see it in the stands. When we are winning, we're probably the best fans in the league.
They're always going to have us. But, building the soccer culture here in Toronto and Canada is it's very important. So, getting in the playoffs is imperative.
Many who cover the team say it's likely going to take time to turn this franchise around.
Patience is going to be required here, that things aren't going to change right away, and that, people expecting new results overnight are going to be, disappointed.
Toronto FC opened training camp earlier this week, so Fraser has had a few days to familiarize himself with his new players. They will open the season on February 22nd in Washington, D.C., and TFC will play its first home game here at BMO Field against Chicago on March 15th. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
Welcome back. For decades, Canada was a top destination for immigrants, seen as a stable and safe place to live. But now, many recent newcomers are calling it an expensive and often futile endeavor. Tali Ricci has more on why some recent immigrants say they felt safer in their home countries.
Then they bring them or there.
Oleg Redko fled the war in Ukraine.
Parth Shah came from India with dreams of prosperity and a specialized education. Both had an image of what Canada would be, but soon after arriving, they had experiences that shattered those ideas.
I was going to the metro station while somebody was stabbed and then people were running out. So for me, it was kind of shocking because I imagined, like for many years, I knew that Canada is like one of the safest countries in the world, one of the best countries in the world. And then I come here and I see that there are like a lot of security issues.
I'm in the library, I'm working on my laptop, and this man walks by and he points at me and says, "I know what you are, and I'm gonna beat you up." He again points at my laptop and is like, you come here with this filth and you spoil our culture. And I'm like, that I understood. He's pointing to a rainbow sticker on my laptop.
CBC News surveyed around 1,500 people who have arrived in Canada in the past decade about their experiences. While a large majority of Ontario newcomers do report feeling safer here than back home, 29% of newcomers in Ontario say they felt safer in their previous country of residence than they do in Canada.
There are various kinds of safety if you want to see it from that perspective. One is unsafe housing. One is insecure food situation or food insecurity. There is also physical unsafeness as well. And there are many ways people experience this. Sometimes very often in fact, they do not report these. I was just walking in the sidewalk by the Union Station and someone came all the way from their other side of the sidewalk and kicked at my luggage and said, I was responsible, or you guys are responsible for the 9/11 attack. And I was visibly shaken.
Wood Green has also seen a 40% increase in the number of newcomers seeking their services, and it's been difficult to keep up. According to Statistics Canada, in the last 10 years, Canada has welcomed more than 5 million newcomers.
And particularly last 2 years, we had seen many newcomers, especially asylum seekers. They were living in a very precarious situation, and they didn't have housing, they didn't have food or hygiene materials, and it was a really crisis situation.
Looking to the future, these newcomers and advocates hope to see better planning and more support from all levels of government.
So they're not giving a straight path for PR for the Ukrainians. So in case of our community, most of the Ukrainians, they apply for the PR through the humanitarian program, or they're trying different type of programs, but not everybody can apply for the PR. That's the issue. So I hope the government of Canada will be more decisive, and already that you brought us here, like I always say that if you already brought us here and we are like constructing our life from zero, just leave us here, you know, like we don't have any place to go.
It would be really nice if community could find a way to intervene and make everybody feel safe. It starts with marginalized communities, but it goes on to like a larger population then. And we must safeguard our marginalized communities more because they are the canaries of the mine. And when anything goes down, they are the ones who is going to get attacked first, but it doesn't stop there.
A sentiment that resonates with Hassan. He says while organizations like Wood Green need more resources to meet the demand, there's also power in community.
The feeling that you are not here by yourself, we are here together. And that was what we had some years ago as well.
Talia Ricci, CBC News, Toronto.
All right, Colette is here with a look at the weather, and still really cold today, but there is some slightly milder weather coming.
Yeah, it's not going to last that long, but we do get
a little bit of a reprieve.
Exactly, for a couple of days, and that's going to be coming our way. And when you take into consideration where our temperatures have been, like over the last few days, and even just today, take a look at our daytime highs. So we always have these negatives in front of the numbers, but we'll get those temperatures rising above freezing as we roll into not so much tomorrow, but as we get towards Friday and Saturday. Saturday. So that's what's coming. And as for what's coming after that, well, give me a moment and I'll tell you about that colder air that'll be moving in next week. But we also have the winter weather travel advisories popping up, you see, in the different areas, but that just has to do with the southwesterly winds and kind of those pockets and areas where that then can deposit some of that lake-enhanced snowfall. So through the Niagara region, stretching down towards Kingston as well, and then in the Goderich area, you know, that could be 10 to 15 centimeters, and then in the lee of Georgian Bay as well. So a couple of systems that are going to be coming through. So first of all, for Thursday, we're looking at this one, not very strong. It will mostly just be this widespread kind of flurry activity to very light snow. And that's much of the day on Thursday that we'll be experiencing that. It's going to be the next system behind that that has very cold conditions, windy conditions, and so the wind chills will be significant. In between is that mild pocket that we're going to have. So that's Friday, and that's going to be for Saturday, at least a portion of Saturday as well. It's kind of Saturday night that those temperatures will really drop off. So the system moving through Thursday, it gives, you know, negligible amounts, trace to a few centimeters of snowfall, other than if you look at the contours, the colors there, again, Georgian Bay around Lake Huron, that's where you get into areas where we could be seeing that 12, 15 centimeters or so. Now, temperatures overnight tonight, -8 to about -10 in most cases, -11 for the nation's capital. But for Toronto, it's -9. Now, tomorrow, -4 still with that flurry activity. Could be a little bit slower on the roads with that. It's Friday, there we go, 1, and Friday night, the temperature doesn't really move. 2 degrees on Saturday. Into Sunday and Monday, that's when that next
it gets cold again.
Air arrives. Yeah.
All right. Thanks so much, Colette.
Yeah.
That's all the time we have tonight. Thanks for watching. Have a great night, everyone.